Hello and welcome to this FPL Hidden Gems video with me, Holly Shand. In this video, I'll be going through my Differential 11 ahead of FPL 22-23. We've seen the early season template is already holding firm, but there's plenty of options that are already being overlooked. If you're new around here, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. Now, I have to start with Raheem Sterling. There is news that he has signed for Chelsea, which I think makes him a more attractive option in FPL. 10 million, but I think he can make a mockery of that price tag. Remember back in 17-18 and 18-19, he easily managed over 30 goal involvements. Not many players got to those tallies in the last campaign, so I think he could really excel under Tuchel, getting consistent minutes again, and maybe Chelsea will shift to a 4-3-3 formation, which will really suit his style of play. Now, even with limited minutes last season, he still scored 13 goals, which is really impressive. And if you look at his stats per 90, he was third overall for expected goals per 90 last season with 0.59, and 6.9 points per 90 left him in the top 10 as well. So some really impressive underlying numbers. He just needs more minutes, and if he gets them at Chelsea, he could be one to watch. Now, I'm going to go through the rest of the players in ownership order, and the first one who just sneaks in as a differential is Liverpool's Robertson. He's in 10% of squads right now. He doesn't seem to be everyone's third Liverpool player behind Salah and Trent, but he really should be. He got 14 attacking returns last season, which put him joint top with Trent and Reece James. And as well as that, his overall returns, he got 31, just one behind Trent Alexander-Arnold. That's including clean sheets in there as well. I was so surprised to see him come in at the same price as last season, 7 million, and he was the third Liverpool player in terms of points per game last season, which is really impressive. And when you compare his points to Luis Diaz, when he joined the Premier League in game week 24, Diaz scored 64 points to the end of the season, Robertson scored 94 points. He's been a monster in 2022. He's the fourth highest player in terms of fantasy points this calendar year, and as well as that, he won't be travelling to the World Cup, so he could be a lock in our teams long term. And among defenders, only Trent Alexander-Arnold created more chances than Robertson's 55 last season. Another player who's potentially being overlooked is Arsenal's Martin Odegaard. 6.5 million is a really nice price for him, and we can consider having more than one attacker from Arsenal in our fantasy teams when we consider the fact that they've got the best opening fixtures, certainly over the first 6 game weeks, possibly over the first 8 as well, avoiding all of the top 4 from last season. We will see rotation with the wingers and the forwards, unfortunately. However, I do think Odegaard has now secured this place in the squad over Smith Rowe. I think we're going to see him get more starts, and in terms of chances created last season, he was 4th of all players with 77 chances created. And when you look at his minutes, that tally is actually really impressive. So the fact that Arsenal have strengthened their attack in this summer window, bringing in Gabriel Jesus, I think Odegaard is set for a really big season, perhaps his breakout season in FPL. Coming in at 6.5% owned right now is James Maddison. I'm really surprised how overlooked he's been so far this pre-season. I know the fixtures are a little bit mixed for Leicester. They've got some easier games mixed in with some tough games, but he is certainly one to watch. He kind of went under the radar towards the end of last season, but Leicester finished last campaign in absolutely phenomenal form, and Maddison actually managed double digits for goals and assists last season, 12 goals and 11 assists. And crucially, they've not got Europe to contend with this season. They're only going to have one game per week, and I think they could really excel, not having that distraction of, the Europa League and Europa Conference League. And only 4 players had more goal involvements last season than Maddison's 23. So that's something to note. He ended up being the 5th best value midfielder in the game last season, having his best ever season, and I can only see improvements from here if he can keep fit throughout this campaign. Coming in at 5 then, we've got Brentford's Ivan Toney, 6.2% owned. He scored 12 goals last season, making him the highest scoring mid-price forward. A little bit of a price rise by 0.5 million to 7 million, but I still think he could be a really great option. He had like 40% ownership last season. He is the talisman of this Brentford side, and I think he could get off to a great start looking at Brentford's favourable run of opening fixtures. So the things to note here, he was 9th for shots last season among all players with 88, and he ended up being the best value forward in the game. So he's certainly going to be one to watch over the opening game weeks of the season. And if you were one of the 40% of managers that started with Toney last season, I think you could easily do the same this season, looking at that run of fixtures. If you've got maybe one striker and you're looking at a 4-5-1 or a 5-4-1 formation, I'd certainly consider making it a 2 up top and making Toney that second striker, because it does leave you a little bit more flexible and it does give you options if your main striker does miss out for whatever reason on a given game week. Moving to the goalkeepers then, and Jose Sarr comes in to this Hidden Gems Differential 11. Priced at 5 million, the same as last season. I know it's the same price as Edouard Mendy, but Mendy takes up a third Chelsea spot, so you can't triple up on their outfield players. And in terms of save percentage last season, Mendy was 4th, Jose Sarr was 1st with 79.3%. Wolves had a great start to the season in terms of their clean sheet potential. They kept 11 clean sheets. We did see a drop off towards the end of the season, but I think they'll be back bigger and better than ever for the start of this season. Some really nice fixtures to start the season with. And because Wolves are a low scoring team and Sarr makes a lot of clean sheets and a high number of saves, he's always in the mix for bonus points as well, which makes him a really attractive option. And even though you can get a slice of the Chelsea defence for 5 million, they've lost some key personnel in this summer transfer window. So I actually think that if I was choosing a 5 million keeper, Sarr would be the one to go for. Slotting into the defence now, I've picked out Leicester's James Justin. Most of Leicester's defence have come in at 4.5 million because of how poor they were last campaign, but they had so many injuries in that defence last season. They had Europe to contend with. All of that is out of the equation now, so I think they're set for a really good season when it comes to their defence potential. And James Justin was one of my players of the season from the 2020-21 season before he got that injury, but he's back fit now. And in terms of his record, in 49 Premier League appearances, he's had 5 goal involvements, he's kept 16 clean sheets, and he loves FPL, which is great for us, and he's always popping up in the box and in the mix for attacking returns. So for me, I really like him as a fantasy asset. He's also as well looking at being a bit of a bonus points magnet. He did very well in the bonus when I owned him 2 seasons ago, so I'm hoping he can replicate this form for this campaign. Back into midfield now, and Riyad Mahrez is a really enticing FPL option this season, especially if you're not doing a freemium draft and you want to go with a Spurs premium and Mo Salah. I think that Mahrez could be the Man City enabler to allow you to have a slice of that Man City attack. 3.9% owned at the moment. He won't be going to the World Cup. Minutes is always the issue, but with Sterling gone and Gabriel Jesus gone, there is less competition for places in this Manchester City attack. I think Mahrez could get more minutes, particularly at the start of the season when Man City don't have a midweek game until game week 4. If you compare all of the Man City players in terms of their points per 90 last season, Mahrez was undoubtedly top of all of them in terms of expected goals, expected assists, etc. And if you look at his expected expected fantasy points per 90 last season, he's ranked 2nd for every player in the game, 3rd for expected goals per 90 with 0.59. So that's really impressive. And his points per 90, 8.15. That means if he was to get 90 minutes under Pep Guardiola in a Premier League game this season, you would expect him on average to get over 8 points. And I think he will benefit from Haaland being the central striker, someone to play off. I think we could really see a big season for Mahrez, and I'm seriously considering owning him in game week. We're getting towards the big differentials now in this differential 11. Looking at Lewis Dunk next at Brighton, just 1.9% owned at the time of recording, and Brighton have got the best opening fixtures over the first 8 game weeks, avoiding all of last season's top 4. They are a defensive team. I think Sanchez kept 11 clean sheets last season, and Dunk's goal scoring record is great. I think he only managed 1 goal last campaign, but the season before that I think he got something like 5 goals, which is really impressive. So you know he's never far away from those attacking returns from set pieces. There's a nailed on route into that Brighton defence. He also takes some set pieces like long range free kicks as well, so he's a great fantasy option to own, and he also rotates very nicely with James Justin. I know that we've mentioned that Leicester have got some tricky fixtures to balance, but you can bring in Dunk for those fixtures and having a rotating pair there for just 9 million. Another defender among the ranks, and it's another slice of the Wolves defence with Jonny, 1.9% owned. He plays the wing-back position, so quite an attacking position for a defender. We've seen him really excel in this position over a number of seasons, and even though there's a little bit of competition with Toney and Semedo will be injured for the start of the season, so won't be there game week 1, and I think Jonny is the most likely of him and Toney to retain his place throughout the season. And it's great fixtures over the first 4 game weeks, so that's something to look out for as well. And he rotates nicely with the West Ham defenders, and I think there's Kufal or potentially Johnson who could play at right back, who would be a nice pairing to go with Jonny if you wanted to start with 2 4.5 million defenders as your 4th and 5th defenders to rotate. Now, my final differential, who is in just 0.4% of teams. I really am genuinely considering him for the start of the season because our forward lines we did struggle with last campaign. Danny Welbeck, he was one of the form players from the final 5 game weeks of last season, netting 3 goals and 4 assists. And again, Brighton, as I've mentioned already, have got the best fixtures over the opening 8 game weeks, including playing 2 of last season's promoted teams in there. And I think if you are looking for a bit of a differential and you don't want to stretch to Toney at 7 million, then Danny Welbeck is a really good compromise at 6.5 million. Here is the differential 11 of hidden gems that you could consider starting the FPL season with then. It's a 4-4-2 formation, some really great options to consider. Do let me know in the comments who is your favourite option from this differential 11 of hidden gems. And if you've enjoyed this one, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back very soon with another video. Bye for now.